Hello everyone, and welcome to this year's Best Books of the Year 2023 video. I normally do this as a top 10 video, but this year I thought to myself, do you know what? In previous years, I've really struggled to find my top 10 best books because different books are great in different ways. And how do you compare a book that is perfectly produced with a book that is perfectly accessible, with a book that is perfectly illustrated, and so on and so forth, right? So I didn't want to do a top 10 this year, and so I've made several categories, and I've chosen the top 3 books in that category. I hope you like the categories that I've picked, and I hope you like the books that I've picked as well. All the links are down below for your perusal and probably for your late Christmas shopping. And speaking of illustrations, I want to start this list with a category of art in an esoteric publication. And yes, Goetic Atavisms and Red Shepherd and so many wonderfully beautiful books came very close to being featured, but I wanted to start this list with Josephine McCarthy's beautiful Mr. Goggis card deck and accompanying book. We'll talk about this a little bit more in the very near future, but Josephine made this deck during the pandemic years. She claims that she hadn't had much experience with a paintbrush prior to this, but the power that emanates from these cards is absolutely incredible, and I think that this absolutely deserves to be in the top 3 illustrations and art of the year. Fantastic stuff. In second place, we've got Enneatic by David Smith, and I know that technically this book doesn't contain any art. It contains diagrams and esoteric maps, but I'm sure that you'll agree that those diagrams and maps are absolutely beautifully represented, and the book is chock full of these fantastic diagrams for understanding the philosophy underlying David Smith's approach to the Enneatic. There we go. And in first place, we have the book that accompanies the Terra Volatile card deck by Credo Quia Absurdum. Absolutely fantastic. This tarot deck has become my go-to tarot deck, and it is absolutely beautiful. Those of you who have already picked this up, you know how much this one deserves to win. My next category is work related to divination, and the first entry in this category, there have been so many books related to divination coming out this year, but my top 3 are: in third place, The Divine Gypsy Mother, which I reviewed just a couple of days ago at the time of recording this. Absolutely wonderful, mundane reading for just day-to-day experiences, day-to-day what's going to happen and what's going to be my best choice and things like this. In second place, we've got Mr. Goggis by Josephine McCarthy once again, and it won't be the last time this wonderful production appears in today's list. I've really appreciated Mr. Goggis as a magic practitioner. This really is a fantastic tool for magic practitioners to do a little bit of introspection and get told a few home truths. And finally, in first place, of course, Benebell Wen's wonderful I Ching, the Oracle, a practical guide to the Book of Changes, in which she gives us an entire course on not just the history of the I Ching, but the esoteric core of the I Ching and everything surrounding the I Ching that you could possibly ever need to know or want to know. I've really appreciated Benebell's very fresh, very new approach to translating the I Ching, and I use it all the time. Fantastic stuff. My next category is Investigative Essay, and these are books that have pushed the boundaries of what is contained in the fields of esoteric and occult work. Again, so many amazing investigative essays written this year, but the top 3 for me have been Ian C. Edwards' A Druid in Psychologist's Clothing, E. Graham Howe's Secret Druidic Doctrine. For those of you who haven't seen my review on it, I do recommend going to check it out. If you're interested in the origins of where Alan Watts got many of his ideas, this is going to be really interesting reading for you. The second place goes to Peter Mark Adams's Hagia Sophia, the Sanctum of Kronos, Spiritual Descent in an Age of Tyranny. A fantastic book full of secrets hidden in the architecture of the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, pointing to pre-Christian religious doctrine. It's a joy to read. And finally, the investigative essay that I enjoyed the most this year was Supernal Serpent by Andrei A. Orlov. Absolutely wonderful work on the mysteries of the Leviathan, and I really recommend checking this one out if you're interested in the esoteric aspects of Christianity and Judaism. In our next category, we've got philosophical work. So these are books that have helped us to think in new ways about esoteric topics. And our first entry in this top 3 of philosophical works is the Enneatic. And what's particularly nice about the Enneatic is the practical aspect of this philosophy. The way that David Heimsmith invites us to engage experientially with the concepts that he's describing in the book. Absolutely wonderful stuff, and I recommend checking out my review. In second place, we've got Goetic Atavisms by Craig Slee and Frater Acher. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Exploring the chthonic side of magic in wonderful and exciting new ways. And of course, it's all illustrated beautifully by José Gabriel Alegría Sabogal. Beautiful, fantastic, important work. And finally, in first place for philosophical work, Near Enemies of the Truth by Christopher D. Wallace, PhD. You may recognize Christopher D. Wallace's name from his book Tantra Illuminated, which brought Tantra into the light from all the misconceptions that existed around this concept. And this book, well, I'll be talking about it a little bit more a little later in this list, but it is so important. It is such an important book. We'll talk about it in a moment. The next category is practical books, books that are going to be useful for ceremonial magicians, ritual magicians, magicians who like to do their magic in the outside material world. In third place, we've got the Book of 4 Occult Philosophers by Daniel Harms and S. Alderney. Not to be confused, of course, with the 4th book of occult philosophy of Agrippa. This is a freshening up of 4 complete grimoires that seem to have possibly some aspects in common, and they span 700 years or however long it is. Anyway, it's fantastic stuff, and if you enjoyed Dan Harms's Book of Oberon, you're going to love the Book of 4 Occult Philosophers. In second place, we've got B.J. Swain's Familiar Unto Me, Witches, Sorcerers and Their Spirit Companions. It is absolutely wonderful the way that B.J. Swain makes the concept of familiars clear and accessible regardless of your background, giving you rituals to acquire your own familiars. Absolutely wonderful stuff. And in first place, did you think it was going to stay on the shelf? The Grimoire Encyclopedia by David Rankin. Absolutely indispensable stuff. 2 gigantic volumes full to the brim with everything that you could possibly ever want to know about grimoires, including how to make them work, in a fantastic introduction in that first volume. But then it is chock-block full of tables of spirits and what they like and what their names are and where you can find out more about them and what their origins are and things like that. Absolutely fantastic, mind-blowing stuff. Beautiful work by David Rankin, published by Hadean Press. My next category is for re-editions, books that have been published in the past and that got a brand new edition this year. And in third place, we've got Underworld, a practical guide to necromancy, which could very well have appeared in the previous category. But this is a really, really nice republishing of Underworld, a book that has been very much appreciated, with color pictures and with really nice chapter headers and things like this. I think Theon Publishing have done a really, really nice job with this one. In second place, we've got For the Sexes, The Gates of Paradise. This has been republished by Black Letter Press in this really nice slip-cased set with this red interior there, and then on the inside of The Gates of Paradise you've got the sprayed edges over here and the beautiful illustrations by William Blake, including his text, of course. Very lovely edition, very lovely production. And finally, in first place, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. This has had so many re-editions over the years, most of which don't include the illustrations, the color illustrations, which are kind of the whole point of this fantastic book. This is normally about twice the size and completely unwieldy, but the Philosophical Research Society have republished it as a facsimile of the original, but in a reduced size so that it's actually perfectly readable. Look, I can hold it in a single hand and actually read it quite nicely. Very, very beautiful stuff. Let's move on to the next category, which is the best production value. And I want to really recognize the work that Scarlet Imprint have done with the Divine Gypsy Mother deck and book. Absolutely wonderful production, as always. And this card deck is just so lovely. Look at that box. So beautiful. And the deck itself, I did a review a couple of days ago that you can check out, and I'm sure that you'll agree that it's absolutely spectacular work. In second place, I'd like to talk about the totemic edition of Vestigia Ater Draconis. Absolutely beautiful production, and to be fair, it is a little bit more expensive than many of the other books in this list. However, every single page is illustrated. Absolutely beautiful work by Carolyn Hamilton, and just everything about it is absolutely lovely. Really, really nice stuff from Atramentus Press. And the first place doesn't go to a specific book, but it goes to a new format of book. Until this year, Anathema Publishing would put two mid-tier hardcover editions. They would put a regular standard hardcover and then a collector's edition hardcover. That's on top of their super deluxe artisanal edition, of course. This year they decided to combine the two mid-tier editions and create some beautiful collector standard editions. I've made reviews of both of these books, and I strongly recommend going to check them out to see how beautiful this new standard of books from Anathema Publishing are. My next category is for underrepresented traditions. So these are books that talk about stuff that is a little bit outside of the usual Solomonic, Wicca, Vajrayana, Tantric stuff, right? So this is a category for books that represent smaller groups of practitioners that may not be very well known, but that have a very powerful tradition nonetheless. So the third place is going to go to The Red Shepherd by Samuel David. So this is Towards a New Image of Dumuzid. Samuel David is very interested in the Sumerian religion, and he came out a couple of years ago with Rod and Ring. This is a sequel to Rod and Ring, very much in the same vein. Very, very interesting stuff and helpful for anyone trying to recreate a Sumerian practice for themselves. The next book on the list is The Thai Occult 2 by Peter Jenks, and this is a fantastic book where Peter Jenks shares with us so many aspects of the Thai occult. Now, this book almost didn't make it onto the list due to the artificial intelligence artwork that feature in the very final pages over here. Nevertheless, I couldn't not have it on the list because of the absolutely fantastic investigative work that Peter Jenks has done on the topic of the Thai occult. An absolutely wonderful read. You don't need to have read the Thai occult 1, although the Thai occult 1 is available as a paperback or a Kindle edition. And in first place, we've got Seven Crossroads of Night, Kimbanda in Theory and Practice by Nikolai de Matos Frisvold. I hadn't any idea about Kimbanda before reading this fantastic work that really explains the concepts of Kimbanda very clearly and very beautifully, and in a way that's very welcoming, I think, to many people making their first steps in the Kimbanda tradition. My next category is accessibility. So these are books that anyone can pick up, regardless of your experience, regardless of how much you've studied this stuff. You will be able to gain some really useful knowledge upon which to build. Now, the books in this category do not have a specific order. I can't give a first place to one or another. They all share the first place for being a highly accessible occult works. So in joint first place, we've got the Terra Volatile book, which goes into so much detail about every single card, every single symbol in this highly esoteric card deck. It's all written in very accessible language, and you'll be surprised at the amount of knowledge that is shared in these pages. In joint first place, we also have On Alchemy by Brian Cotenoir. So Brian Cotenoir previously wrote Practical Alchemy, one of the best modern books on alchemy at all. And in this On Alchemy, he shares some practical ways in which you can make alchemy work for you. It's delightful, it's easy to read, it's easy to put into practice, and I recommend it to anyone. Very inexpensive price. And again, in joint first place, we've got Near Enemies of the Truth by Christopher D. Wallace. This book is indispensable and so approachable. Christopher D. Wallace takes all of the axioms of the New Age, like be your best self and speak your truth and listen to your heart and you create your reality and so on. And he shows you how they can be absolutely devastating for your spiritual life if you take them in the wrong way, which most people do. And then he gives you the constructive, original meaning of this sentence so that you can put it to work in a way that doesn't actually undermine your spiritual life. Now, Christopher D. Wallace, being who he is, he's mostly interested in you understanding what he's writing about and benefiting from his knowledge so that you can actually grow from it. And so it's all written in very simple, accessible language, very short sentences, very interesting, engaging chapters. And I even recommend checking out the audiobook, which is read by the author himself. My next category is value for money, and of course I had to start with Venerable Wen's incredible I Ching, the Oracle, which is an entire course in Taoist history and thought and practical magic that you can put into practice yourself for under $30. It's absolutely incredible value for money. In second position, we've got Hermetic Arcanum. So this is a book that came out just a couple of days ago at the time of recording, and it's the first book in the first volume in the Mysterium Hermeticum series, which is being published by Aula Lucis, this new publisher in the UK. Absolutely one to look out for. Fantastic value for money, beautiful production, really nice stuff. I strongly recommend checking out my review of it that I made just a couple of days ago. And the first position features the queen of value for money, of course, the creator of the free online course, Quarea.com. And this is Mr. Goggis. And the reason I put Mr. Goggis in first place is because with just a couple of bucks, you get to have personalized readings from Josephine McCarthy by just doing her layouts and reading her interpretations from her book. She's giving you direct personal recommendations for your spiritual and magical life, and there is nothing on the market of that much value for that little cost. Incredible stuff. And I'd like to close this list with a final category of books that have personally affected my life very deeply. And I think that anyone reading them will come out a better person. And in third place, it's The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. Absolutely wonderful book that you can open on any page and get something from, but I've read this systematically from beginning to end, and there are so many recommendations for the creative person that I cannot begin to emphasize enough how important this book is. And I think that just as one example of the things that I got out of this book, the realization that when I work on a long-term creative project, I'm not just one person working on this project, because I change from day to day. And I need to think about these long-term projects as collaborative projects, collaborating with past and future versions of myself. That has really helped me in my creative process. And that's just one of the points that Rick Rubin brings up in this wonderful, accessible, and inexpensive book that I really recommend to anyone. Links down below, of course. In second place, which, to be honest with you, really struggled with the first position, but when you see the first position, I'm sure you'll agree with me. Near Enemies of the Truth is definitely the best book that has been written this year by Not Foolish Fish. I feel like Near Enemies of the Truth should be required reading for anyone living in society in 2024. It's actually that good. The fact that the advice that it offers is not only theoretical but practical also really makes this a standout book this year. And of course, the most important book of the year had to be Hidden Paths by some guy called Denis Poisson. I think he hosts a YouTube channel called Foolish Fish. Now, beyond blowing my own trumpet, of course, I want to really recognize the fantastic production work that Black Letter Press has done on this book. I've already given away all the paperback editions that I had, but you can check out the unboxing video that I did and you'll see what a beautiful production the paperback edition is in itself. But yes, this purple first edition was absolutely delightful, and the collector's edition also an absolute delight and really, really luxurious on the shelf. And of course the third edition, which is currently available from Black Letter Press and also many other retailers. Well, I'm sure that this top #1 best book of the year surprises no one, but are there any other books that I missed out for you in any of the categories? What book did you read this year that really had a very deep, long-lasting effect on your practice or your life? Let me know what your favorites were down in the comments. I'd really be very interested to know. And congratulations to every single author and publisher out there featured on today's video, and also those of you who didn't feature on today's video. Maybe I didn't quite get to your book this year, maybe you deserved to be on today's list and my mind just went blank. That's quite possible as well, to be honest with you. But I do want to say thank you for making this early 21st century a real heyday for occult publishing. It's a very exciting time to be alive. If you liked what you saw today and you'd like to support the channel, there's a Patreon that you can subscribe to for just $2 a month, and that gives you access to the Foolish Fish Discord. And if you are already a member and you're trying to access the Foolish Fish Discord, just check out the description and scroll down to the bottom on any of the most recent videos and you'll see how to join the Discord from there. Now, speaking of members, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of you who have supported me throughout 2024, and in particular the Level Infinity members: David Venturini, Caitlin Kopok from Sphere and Sundry, Aritz Murueta Ramos, Danny Barr, hekabooks.com.au for difficult to find esoteric and occult books in Australia, Howard Wolf, Linda Hendricks, Stephen Hunter, and Susanna Red Elfs. Thank you so much for your support, and as I hope you saw in the recent thank you video that I released just for members, your help and your support means the world to me and to my family. And naturally, thank you to all members on all levels, and especially the level 3 members whose names you can see scrolling up on the left-hand side over here. If you'd like to have a one-to-one video conversation with me on any topic you choose, or if you'd like me to read your tarot, maybe do a reading for the entire year 2024, what to look forward to, what to pay attention to, then the link for that is in the description and also in the pinned comment. I wish you all a fantastic end of year. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you do something special for the winter solstice, then I hope that the winter solstice was wonderful for you. I wish you a very happy 2024, and here's looking forward to 12 more months of extraordinary esoteric and occult books coming out. Please take care of all of yourselves and of each other, and I'll see you very soon in the new year with another video. Bye-bye.